All right, so I was going to do my hot takes video today, which I'll get to likely in a day or so, but I felt like this topic warranted a discussion because I see it gaining a lot of traction on social media and I see a lot of Bulls fans up in arms about it, rightfully so. And that's this notion, the rumor report that the Bulls could be a potential team that could help facilitate a Jimmy Butler trade, a trade that would send him to the Phoenix Suns, which is where he wants to go, and the Bulls would ultimately land Bradley Beal in the trade as a result. Now, these rumors aren't new. You heard some of these rumblings about a couple weeks ago when the news of Jimmy Butler requesting a trade first came out. I didn't make a video on it then because not every report or rumor has to be made into a video, but I also found it ridiculous, and the topic really died down shortly thereafter because the biggest thing that would have prevented any deal getting done where the Bulls would take on Bradley Beal's contract would have been involved where the Bulls are getting draft capital in return in the deal, which the Suns did not have at that time. However, I'm sure most of you saw the report last night that the Suns actually have traded out their one and only first round pick they have available to trade, sending out an unprotected pick in 2031 to the Jazz in exchange for 3 first round picks, these coming from the Cavs and Timberwolves that the Jazz acquired in the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell trade, which are picks that are potentially not going to be as valuable because as part of the trade, the picks are going to be the least favorable between the 2 picks of Minnesota and Cleveland for 25, 2027, and 2029. As an example, when you're looking at this year's draft between Minneapolis and Cleveland, Cleveland is going to have the lesser of the 2 picks given they currently have the best record in the league, which would mean the pick that the Suns are most likely going to get in this upcoming draft via this trade is going to be either the 29th or 30th pick. So anyway, those asking why would the Jazz do this? Why would they exchange 3 picks to just get 1? Well, they're banking on the fact that the Suns are a bit of a mess. It's an unprotected pick in 2031. That pick could be incredibly valuable at that time, much more valuable than the picks they have from the Timberwolves and the Cavs, and they still control which pick they send to the Suns. They'll be sending the least favorable pick, so they still get the better pick between the 2. Now, you're probably asking, well, how do the Bulls play into all of this? Well, it's important to note that the Suns now have 3 first-round picks to work in any trade deal, including any deal that would net them Jimmy Butler. Because in order to get off Bradley Beal's contract, 1, he has to agree to waive his no-trade clause, which that is a bigger hurdle first and foremost, but 2, they would need to incentivize a team to take on his contract by sending out draft picks, more than just 1 first-round pick, which is all they had before. And so the reason this becomes more intriguing and why the Bulls are linked to it is because 1, they have the salary to match Beal and or Jimmy Butler to help facilitate a trade, that being the max salary of Zach LaVine, and then 2, given the Bulls' new direction, you have to assume they want draft picks to make it worth it to take on Bradley Beal's contract, which the Suns now have with their 3 first-round picks at their disposal. So the deal would look something like Jimmy Butler going to Phoenix, Zach LaVine going to Miami or Milwaukee, who has been another team rumored to be a facilitator in that trade, and then the Bulls would get Beal and picks. So that's sort of the basis and logistics for how this could potentially work. Now, I'll save a lot of Bulls fans some stress and heartburn of the idea of potentially having Bradley Beal and his Supermax contract on the Bulls. I can guarantee you that under no circumstance, except maybe one, which I'll get into what that is, but absence of that, I can guarantee you the Bulls would never take on Bradley Beal's contract. Here's why. If the Bulls do in fact sell off their assets, their vets at the deadline, they trade Vooch, Lonzo, and even LaVine, the basis of them doing that is getting a lot of salary off their books for the future to give them more flexibility, and doing this because they're fully embracing the rebuild, fully embracing the youth movement, and prioritizing young player development. By taking on Bradley Beal, even if it does include picks, you're taking on a player who is owed more money than Zach LaVine. He has the same number of years left on his contract, which he's going to be making $53 million and $57 million respectively after this season, while Zach is making $45 and $48 million. Bradley Beal is also older. He's 31 compared to Zach, who's still 29. And most importantly, Beal has a no-trade clause in his contract, which severely limits the Bulls' ability to try and flip him in a deal if they acquired him, because he can simply veto any trade offer. Let's be real, Bradley Beal's contract is arguably the worst contract in the NBA right now, given his age, the amount that he's owed, and that no-trade clause. Like, yes, Russell Westbrook's max was bad towards the end of his deal. Ben Simmons, same thing when he still had a few years left on his contract. But at least these guys were tradable, where a team could be open to taking on their contracts because they could use that as salary filler in a future trade. You can't do that with Bradley Beal because he holds the cards. He has the final say. And if the Bulls thought they had a hard time getting off Zach's contract, Think of how challenging it's going to be to get off Beals if they acquire him. You're talking about a contract that's going to hamstring you to make additional moves for a player who is on the decline, and there's nothing you can do about it. You would be stuck with that contract until it expires. Because we also know the Bulls aren't going to try and buy him out. Jerry wouldn't just throw away money like that to pay a player to not play. The Bulls would be stuck with him. And if the whole purpose of moving Zach LaVine was to fully embrace the youth movement, free up your books for the future, you're essentially putting yourself in the same position as before, except worse, by having Bradley Beal in your payroll. Now, I talked about the one circumstance, the one way where I could see the Bulls taking on Bradley Beal is if the deal involves a significant amount of draft capital. I'm not talking just about 3 first-round picks that the Suns now have, because that wouldn't be enough, especially when the pick in 2025 is expected to be the last pick in the first round, with the Cavs having the best record in the league right now. I'm talking 4 to 5 first-round picks, something that is just too enticing for the Bulls to pass up that could really accelerate their rebuild and better position themselves for the future. Then, fine. You take on Beal's contract, you figure out what to do with him down the line. Maybe he would be more amenable to waiving his trade clause because he's not going to want to be part of a rebuilding team, or you do work through some kind of buyout when he heads into the final year of his contract. The problem, though, and why I keep saying it's a guarantee this is not going to happen, is because there isn't even a scenario that would allow for the Bulls to land 4 or 5 first-round picks, because the Suns now only have 3 to send. The Bucks don't have any tradable first-round picks at the moment, and while the Heat have a couple, they're going to be very reluctant to give up picks when they're trading away their all-star and Jimmy Butler. I just don't see it happening. So Bulls fans, breathe easy. The Bulls aren't landing Bradley Beal in a trade. It's not going to happen, although watch now, Shams is going to break the news any minute, and I'll have to come back on here and eat my words. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.